My name's Daniel Carter. I'm 37 years old, and for the last 4 years, I thought I was on the path to building something solid, not flashy or perfect, but real. You know what I mean? The kind of life that's not about wild highs, but consistency. Warmth. Peace. That was what I wanted. And for a while, I honestly thought I had it. Lauren Miller, 34, was my partner. Architect. Brilliant. Grounded. Had this stillness about her that could quiet a whole room. Most days she worked from home, tucked away in her little home office with the blinds cracked just enough to let in the morning light. I used to peek in on her, not in a creepy way, just to catch her in her element. Pencil tucked behind one ear, glasses halfway down her nose, listening to old jazz records while sketching blueprints I could barely understand. That was Lauren, always thinking 3 steps ahead. We lived together in this small, cozy house on the outskirts of Austin. Not quite hill country, but far enough from downtown that you could hear the crickets at night. The rent wasn't cheap, but it felt worth it. 2 bedrooms, a little fenced-in backyard with patchy grass, and an old porch swing that creaked when you sat on it for too long. It wasn't a dream house, but it was ours. Mornings were my favorite. I'd wake up early and go for a jog down by the river trail. She'd still be asleep, curled up with one arm across my pillow. I'd come back sweaty and gross, and she'd wrinkle her nose, teasing me about stinking up the sheets. Then we'd make breakfast, sometimes together, sometimes trading off. She was a genius with poached eggs. I handled pancakes and bacon. It became our rhythm. Weekends were slow, unrushed. We'd grocery shop on Saturday mornings, grabbing coffee on the way, arguing about whether or not we really needed another houseplant. We always bought one anyway. In the afternoons, she'd flip through home design magazines while I watched football or checked in on work emails. It wasn't exciting, but it was comfortable, familiar, and maybe that was the point. We took care of each other in the little ways that matter. She'd pack me lunch when I had long meetings. I'd warm up her car in the winter. She bought me socks every Christmas because she said I never replaced them. I kept her favorite mug clean because she hated drinking coffee out of anything else. Those details, the small stuff no one else sees, that's what made our life feel full. It wasn't without bumps. No relationship is. She had a tendency to shut down when she was overwhelmed. I could be a little too sarcastic, sometimes at the wrong moments. But we always circled back. We talked things out. At least I thought we did. And yeah, I'd be lying if I said marriage wasn't on my mind. It wasn't just that we were living together or that we had friends starting families. It was the way we settled into each other, like the sharp edges had worn down. We fit. She was my person. I'd even gone ring shopping. It sat in the top drawer of my dresser, hidden under a stack of t-shirts, still in the box. Platinum band, oval-cut diamond, clean design. Lauren wasn't flashy. She'd mentioned once, in passing, that if anyone ever proposed to her, she'd want something simple. Understated. I took notes. I hadn't told anyone. Not my buddies, not my sister. I was just waiting for the right moment. I thought maybe the summer, maybe I'd plan something around our trip to the coast. She loved the water. We talked about maybe getting a dog after that. Settling down for real. I thought we were already on that road, just slowly walking it together. Looking back, I can't tell you exactly when that feeling started to shift. That's the tricky thing. When you're in it, when you're living day to day with someone, you don't always notice the silence growing. The space between words. The things that go unsaid. All I knew was that I felt safe. And I thought she did too. There's a photo on my nightstand I put it away a few weeks ago. It's from a trip we took to Marfa about 2 years into living together. We'd rented a tiny Airstream on this ranch in the middle of nowhere. No cell service. Just us and the desert stars. She's got this oversized flannel shirt on, hair up in a messy bun, holding a cup of coffee and smiling at me like I was the only person in the world. I remember taking that photo thinking, this is it. This is the woman I want to wake up next to for the rest of my life. It's funny how a memory can feel so solid, so permanent, and then later become something you don't know what to do with, like a souvenir from a place that doesn't exist anymore. At work, things were good. I'm in finance, not the glamorous, flashy side, but the reliable, clean-cut, client trust kind of finance. I managed portfolios for mid-sized investors and local businesses. Long-term strategy, risk mitigation, ethical returns. It wasn't S*XY, but I was proud of the relationships I'd built. I'd been talking to Lauren's dad, Robert Miller, about potentially launching something together, a values-driven investment firm. He had connections, credibility, and I had the operational muscle. It was all in early stages, but it felt promising. Another thing I thought we'd be building together. Lauren was proud of me, or at least I thought she was. She told her friends I was solid, steady. She'd roll her eyes when I got nerdy about tax-advantaged accounts, but she'd smile while doing it. I thought that smile meant something. I guess that's the thing that guts you later, the way you can read love into every glance, every touch, only to find out later that maybe you were the only one reading the story that way. For a long time, I thought the best thing about our life was how uneventful it was. No screaming matches, no threats to leave, just two people who shared a space, a rhythm, a vision. We hosted the occasional dinner party, went to the farmer's market, binge-watched dumb reality shows and took turns doing the dishes. I used to lie in bed with her on Sunday mornings, sunlight coming through the blinds, her head on my chest, thinking, if this is it, if this is all my life ever becomes, I'll die happy. And I meant it. I had no idea that quiet could be hiding something, that the stillness I loved so much could actually be distance, that while I was planning proposals and picturing family holidays, she might have already started pulling away. If I'd known how fast that kind of peace can evaporate, maybe I would have looked closer, paid more attention, asked different questions. But I didn't, because back then, I still believed in us. Back then, I thought the worst thing that could happen was forgetting to grab oat milk at the store. I had no idea that the real worst thing was already moving, slow, silent, and steady, underneath the surface of our perfect little life. It started with a sound. That's what sticks with me the most, how something so small can break the surface. It was a Tuesday morning. I'd gone out for a run a little earlier than usual. I had a conference call that day, so I decided to get my miles in before sunrise. The air was cool, and the trail along the river was quiet, just the sound of gravel under my shoes and the occasional hum of a passing car. I remember feeling good. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have this life, this routine, this woman to come home to. I got back around 6:15. The house was mostly dark, a single light glowing from under the bedroom door. I toed off my shoes by the door and made my way down the hall, already planning out my shower, coffee, maybe breakfast in bed for her if I had time. Just another morning. Then I heard her voice, muffled, low, almost a whisper. At first, I assumed she was on the phone. Lauren sometimes started her day early if she had a client in a different time zone. But this wasn't her usual tone. There was something breathy about it. Int asterisk mate, like a secret being shared. And then I heard the words, last night was crazy. I can still smell you. I stopped cold. My heart didn't immediately race. It was more like everything went still, like my brain had to pause and run diagnostics before reacting. I waited. No reply, just a soft laugh from her, then silence. I pushed open the door gently. She jumped. Her phone was already out of sight, probably tossed under the blanket. Her eyes flashed with something I couldn't name right away. Not guilt exactly, more like panic, like she wasn't prepared for the timeline to shift. Hey, she said quickly, too quickly. You're back early. I was still trying to process. I played it casual. Yeah, wanted to beat the heat. Who were you talking to? She blinked. Jessica, just catching up. She's back from that retreat. Remember? I nodded slowly, even though something didn't sit right. Jessica had told us weeks ago she was going off-grid for a while. One of those wellness retreats with no phones, no internet, no contact. She was supposed to be up in the mountains somewhere. So why was Lauren talking to her at 6 a.m.? On a Tuesday? I said nothing, just walked past her into the bathroom and turned on the shower. The water masked the sound of my thoughts, but inside, I was tumbling, trying to find solid footing. Had I heard it wrong? Maybe it was just a joke. Maybe they were laughing about some inside thing from college. Something innocent. Something dumb. But later that day, when I had a moment to myself, I checked. Jessica's Instagram hadn't updated in over a week. Her last post was a picture of a mountain trail and the caption, "See you all on the other side." No tags. No comments. Total radio silence. I texted her, casually, "Hey, when are you back from the woods? Hope it's been good." No reply. By that night, the silence in our house had changed. It wasn't thick, not yet, but it had a shape, a weight, like an uninvited guest sitting just off to the side, watching us. I told myself to shake it off, that I was overreacting, that after 4 years with someone, things would obviously feel familiar, not electric every second. That hearing something out of context doesn't mean betrayal. But something in me had shifted. A seed had been planted, and no matter how much I wanted to ignore it, I could feel the roots start to dig. The next odd thing came 2 days later. Lauren left her ring, the one I got her on our 3rd anniversary, in the bathroom drawer. She never took it off. Said it made her feel safe. She wore it like a promise. When I asked about it, she said it was irritating her skin and she'd just forgotten to put it back on. "Stress rash," she said, shrugging. I nodded. That night, I noticed she kept her laptop on the dining table. Usually, she worked in her office or on the couch beside me. But now she said she needed more space. And when I came into the room to grab a glass of water, she closed it fast. Almost slammed it, like she was hiding something. She smiled at me a little too big. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah," she said, casual as ever. "Just zoning out." Felt like watching a play. Something rehearsed. The lines weren't bad, but they weren't real either. Then there was the yoga class. Lauren had been doing yoga on and off for years, but recently she started going twice a week to a new studio across town. I didn't question it. People change routines. She said it helped with her back, helped her sleep. I even encouraged it. But one night, she came home later than usual. Hair slightly damp, sweater draped around her shoulders. And as she hugged me, I caught a scent I couldn't place. Cologne. Not mine. I said nothing at first. But when she went upstairs, I pulled her sweater off the back of the chair she'd tossed it on. Lifted it to my nose. It was there. Subtle. Masculine. Familiar in a way that made my stomach knot. I waited for her to say something. A comment about running into someone. A funny story from class. Nothing. Just a kiss on the cheek and I'm exhausted. The next morning, she wore that same sweater again. Said it was cozy. I tried to play it cool. Tried to tell myself not to become one of those paranoid guys, the ones who spiral. But I couldn't let it go. So I checked her call log. Wiped. Clean. All recent history deleted. Every number, every text, gone. Just blank space. I asked her about it later, made up a joke about needing to grab a number she'd called the day before. "Oh," she said, brushing it off. "My phone was glitching. I had to reset everything." She said it so fast it sounded like a line she'd practiced in the mirror. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The bed felt colder than usual. She curled up beside me, her breathing soft, even. I watched her in the dark and wondered who else she sounded like that with. Who she texted when she stayed late. Who knew the version of her I wasn't seeing anymore. I started noticing smaller things after that. Crumbs in the passenger seat of her car, even though she said she hadn't eaten out. A bracelet I'd never seen before, one with a small silver plate engraved with initials I didn't recognize. She said it was from a childhood friend she hadn't mentioned in all 4 years we'd been together. "She found me online," Lauren said with a little laugh. "We used to make these as kids." I looked up the initials. No social media hits. No mutual friends. Nothing. Something was off. I didn't want to admit it yet, not even to myself, but the gut punch of that early morning whisper, "I can still smell you," kept looping in my head. So I made a decision I never thought I'd make. I downloaded a tracking app. I felt sick about it, like I was betraying her privacy. But at that point, I didn't trust my own judgment anymore. I needed truth. Proof. something real I could hold in my hands. A week later, she told me she was having a girls' night, dinner and drinks with some coworkers from a past firm. She kissed my cheek and told me not to wait up. I smiled, said, "Have fun." Then I watched her location ping. Not at a restaurant, not downtown, a boutique hotel 20 minutes out of town. She stayed there for 3 hours. My hands shook as I watched her move on the map. Elevator, room, back down, gone. When she got home, she smelled like new perfume. I asked her how dinner was. She said it was great. That night, lying beside her, the only thought I had was this: something was breaking, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to know how deep the cracks went. When you start suspecting someone you love, there's a part of you that fights back. Not at them, at yourself. You tell yourself you're crazy, paranoid, unfair. You reach for every excuse, every explanation. Because the alternative, that the person you've built your life around is lying to you, is too big to hold in your hands. That's where I was living. In the in-between. After that girls' night at the boutique hotel, something in me hardened. The seed of doubt that had been quietly rooting itself in my chest sprouted. It didn't matter how many smiles she gave me or how normal she tried to act. The world I thought I knew had tilted, and I couldn't tilt it back. At first, I tried subtle things. I'd ask questions about her day, about her yoga classes, about the coworker dinners. Not accusing, just curious. Her answers were smooth, almost too smooth. Dates lined up, names lined up. But when I compared them to the receipts I could see in our joint account, the timelines didn't add up. Lift charges to places she didn't mention. Small charges at coffee shops out of her usual orbit. Regular bank transfers to a name I didn't recognize, Mike Rivers. They weren't huge amounts, 50 here, 70 there, but regular like clockwork, twice a month. Always labeled consulting in the memo line. I asked her about it once offhand. "Hey, who's Mike Rivers?" She blinked. "Oh, a designer friend, helping me with a side project." A side project she'd never mentioned. She said it lightly, like it wasn't worth explaining. That night, while she showered, I opened her laptop. She'd left it on the kitchen table again, still warm. The password was the same as always. My hands trembled as I logged in. I hated myself for doing it, but it felt like my only chance to claw back reality. Her email inbox was clean, too clean. The trash folder had been emptied minutes before. The browser history wiped, like someone tidying up before company arrives. Except the company was me. I closed it quickly before she came downstairs, heart pounding. The next day, I moved from passive to active. I installed a tracker on her phone. A small, simple app. It wouldn't show me texts or calls. Just location. Just enough to know where she was and for how long. I told myself if she was telling the truth, I'd delete it and never mention it. That's how badly I wanted to be wrong. For the first few days, everything checked out. Work, yoga, grocery store. A meeting at an architecture firm she freelanced with. Normal. I almost deleted the app. Then Friday came. She told me she had a late yoga class. Then drinks with an old college friend who was in town for one night. She even showed me a picture of the friend, an old Snapsh *T from years ago. "We'll probably be out late," she said, kissing my cheek. I watched the little dot on my screen move. It didn't go to the yoga studio. It didn't go downtown. It went back to that same boutique hotel. This time, she stayed for 5 hours. I sat in my car a few blocks away, staring at the glowing screen, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I told myself to drive home, to not do something I'd regret. But another part of me, the part that was done being the nice guy, wanted to see it with my own eyes. So I drove over. The hotel was low-key but stylish, the kind of place where no one asks questions. The lobby smelled like cedar and wine. I stood near the bar, heart pounding, and asked the bartender a quiet favor. I slid a small box across the counter, the engagement ring I'd bought months ago. The ring she didn't know existed. The ring I'd imagined slipping onto her finger on some sunlit beach. "Could you do me a favor?" I said to the bartender, my voice low. "There's a woman coming off the elevator soon. Blue dress. Give this to her. Tell her it's from Daniel. Tell her, he knows. The bartender looked at me for a long second, then nodded. No questions. I stepped back, half hidden behind a column, just in time to see the elevator doors slide open. Lauren stepped out. She was holding hands with a man I'd never seen in person but recognized instantly from his profile photo on a billing statement. Mike Rivers. Tall, confident, suit jacket over his shoulder. They were laughing at something easy and *mate laughter that used to belong to me. The bartender walked over, placed the little box on the bar in front of her, and spoke the words I'd asked him to. From Daniel. He knows. Her face went white. Mike blinked, confused. Who's Daniel? She turned, scanning the room. Our eyes met. I didn't say a word. I just walked out. Behind me, I heard her call my name. Soft at first, then louder. She tried to catch up, heels clicking on the tile. I kept moving. Out the door, into the night air. My heart hammering but my mind strangely clear. Back in my car, I sat there for a long time. Not crying. Not yelling. Just breathing. Staring at the steering wheel like it could tell me what to do next. I thought of all the mornings we'd spent together. The breakfasts. The jokes about oat milk. The ring hidden under my t-shirts. And then I thought of her voice that morning. Last night was crazy. I can still smell you. How I doubted myself. How I'd wanted to believe her. I turned the key and drove home. By the time I walked into our house, it didn't feel like ours anymore. It felt like a stage set after the play is over. Props and furniture, but no story left. I went into our bedroom, pulled open the dresser drawer, and stared at the empty space where the ring box had been. My hands were steady. My mind wasn't spinning anymore. The truth was heavy, but it was solid. It had weight, and weight at least you can hold. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad, writing down every transfer, every receipt, every lie. Not to punish her, not to hurt her, but to reclaim my own narrative. To know I wasn't crazy. By sunrise, I had a folder full of evidence and a calmness I hadn't felt in weeks. I wasn't the man guessing anymore. I was the man who knew. Some moments burn into your memory like branding iron to skin. Clean, hot, permanent. That night at the hotel wasn't just a confirmation. It was the moment the story broke open. Everything before that point existed in the realm of denial, doubt, second-guessing. But after I saw her step off that elevator hand in hand with Mike Rivers, the man I'd only known as a name on a bank statement, there was no more wondering, no more hoping, just truth. The strange thing was, I wasn't angry in that moment. Not in the way you'd expect. I didn't want to scream, didn't want to swing at him, didn't want to plead with her. When her eyes met mine, wide with the kind of fear you only get when someone strips your mask off in public, all I felt was hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and left just enough of me behind to keep standing. Mike's voice had cracked through the space between us. Who's Daniel? That one question, simple and stupid, summed up everything. You've got to understand, I wasn't just some guy she'd been dating casually. We had a life together. 4 years of shared rent, shared bills, shared holidays with her family. My toothbrush sat beside hers every night. We talked about kids. I knew her favorite movie, her coffee order, the name of her childhood cat. And this man didn't even know I existed. That said everything I needed to know about the depth of her betrayal. When I walked out of the hotel, I wasn't storming off. I was choosing peace. My silence wasn't passive. It was the last ounce of dignity I could hold on to while the woman I loved scrambled behind me, calling my name. Daniel! Daniel, please wait! I didn't stop. I didn't flinch. I got into my car and drove without looking back. Not at her. Not at the building. Not at the life we'd built that was now so obviously a lie. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sky was shifting from blue to black. The house looked different. Same porch, same plants in their ceramic pots, but it didn't feel like home. Felt like a crime scene. Everything inside had been touched by her hands. Cookware she picked out, books she lined on the shelf, even the throw blanket on the couch we always fought over in winter. It all felt contaminated now. I went into our bedroom and packed a small overnight bag. Laptop, chargers, 2 days worth of clothes. I didn't want to see her when she came home. I didn't want to hear explanations or excuses. I booked a room at a business hotel near my office and left before she could get back. The room was small, clean, impersonal, just what I needed. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone. Dozens of missed calls. Half were from her. Some from unknown numbers, maybe burner phones, maybe friends. I didn't care. I opened a new email draft. Subject, Lauren. To Robert Miller. Robert was Lauren's father. We weren't just casually acquainted. He and I had worked together on a couple of business development projects through his real estate holdings. He was sharp, principled, and, at least I believed, respectful of me. When we first started dating, he told me he saw me as the real deal, the kind of man he hoped Lauren would end up with. I wasn't writing him to tattle. This wasn't revenge. This was clarity. I laid out the facts. I'd discovered regular transfers from Lauren to a man named Mike Rivers, under the guise of consulting. I tracked Lauren's phone and confirmed she'd visited a hotel multiple times while telling me she was elsewhere. I'd personally seen her with Mike at the hotel, holding hands, exiting an elevator together. I had left her a ring box at the bar, which she received. She knew what it meant. I ended the email simply, I wanted you to hear this from me before it surfaces elsewhere. I'm walking away. Respectfully, Daniel. No emotion. No bitterness. Just facts. I hit send. Then I turned my phone off. That night in the hotel, I didn't sleep much. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about the version of myself I had been just weeks ago. The man who was still hiding a ring in his drawer. The man who believed shared breakfast routines were enough to mean something. The man who thought emotional affairs were things that happened to other people. In the morning, I went back to the house. It was empty, quiet. Her car wasn't in the driveway. A note on the counter in her handwriting said simply, Daniel, I don't know what to say. I messed up. I know that. I want to explain everything, not to excuse it, but because I owe you the truth. Please call me. Please. Lauren. I didn't call. I didn't text. Instead, I started the process of detangling our lives. I called the bank and froze our joint accounts. Not out of spite, but protection. I transferred my direct deposit to a solo account. Changed the passwords to all my personal logins, streaming services, utility accounts, anything we'd shared. Canceled the summer trip we had planned to Oregon, the one where I had once thought I'd propose. I wasn't waiting for her to come back so we could talk. I was making it clear that we were no longer a we. Later that week, she came home when I wasn't there and took some of her clothes. She left more notes, long ones this time, emotional, apologetic, full of phrases like, it wasn't serious and I was confused, and I didn't know how to tell you. But the thing is, she had already told me. Not with words, with actions. Every lie, every hidden call, every fake yoga class and secret transfer. That was her answer. The final straw came when I noticed a small framed photo was gone from my nightstand. The one from Marfa, the desert trip where she wore my flannel and sipped coffee under the stars. She had taken it. I don't know if it was to keep it or destroy it, but either way, I didn't care. That memory no longer belonged to me, not in the way I'd remembered it. That version of us had already been overwritten. It wasn't until a few days later that Robert replied to my email. He didn't say much. Just, Daniel, I'm deeply sorry. I had no idea. Let's meet. I want to talk, not about Lauren, but about your fund idea. I still believe in you. Robert. I read it twice, not because I didn't understand it, but because I wasn't sure what to feel. Lauren had lost more than a relationship. She had fractured the trust of people beyond me, and I wasn't going to shield her from the consequences. That night, I finally opened my dresser drawer again. The space where the ring box had been felt like a wound. Not bleeding anymore, but still raw. Still tender. I didn't cry. I didn't break things. I just stared at the empty space and nodded to myself. It was over. Not with a bang, but with a quiet, clean exit. I had handed her the truth in a box, and she couldn't carry it. After the hotel and the note and the silence that followed, I realized something. Heartbreak doesn't show up the way you expect it to. You think it's going to be loud, explosive, screaming matches and thrown plates and some dramatic final blowout. But for me, it arrived in small, quiet moments. Sitting on the edge of the bed, folding her socks into a bag she hadn't come back for. Watching the shared Spotify account start playing songs I didn't recognize. Standing in the kitchen realizing I didn't know how to cook her favorite pasta because she always did it herself. It's death by 1,000 details. So I started cutting cords. The first thing I did was change every password, banking, streaming, cloud storage, even my grocery app. Felt like reclaiming my name one login at a time. Then I froze our joint checking account. We had about $4,200 in it. I transferred my half to a solo account and let her figure out the rest. Then came the bills. I called the electric company, the water company, the insurance provider. Removed her name. Added mine. Canceled the shared credit card we used for groceries and gas. She'd left a pair of running shoes in the backseat of my car, along with a charger and a few hair ties in the console. I boxed them up neatly, labeled the box with her name, and set it in the garage. I didn't do any of this with anger. It was just protocol, like tending to a wound after surgery. You don't yell at the scalpel, you just clean the stitches and wait to heal. The trip to Oregon, the one I'd planned to propose on, was fully refundable, luckily. I called the travel agent, told her we needed to cancel due to a change in circumstances. She didn't ask questions, just processed the refund. I stared at the confirmation email for a long time, watching the line that read reservation. Daniel Carter and Lauren Miller disappear from my inbox. Then I wrote her one final email. Lauren, I'm not blocking your number. I'm not changing the locks. I'm not deleting photos or pretending the past 4 years didn't happen. But I need distance now. I won't engage with texts, calls, or apologies. This is not me being cold. This is me protecting myself. I hope you do whatever healing you need to do. I will too. Daniel. I didn't wait for a reply. I didn't expect one. That week, I began to move differently. I woke up earlier, ran longer, cut back on coffee, reconnected with a few old friends I hadn't seen in months. I joined a co-working space downtown just to avoid coming home to silence every night. It helped. But the real shift came with Robert Miller, Lauren's father. We met at his office, a polished suite on the 19th floor of a glassy downtown building that looked like the kind of place success wears a tie. He greeted me at the door like nothing had happened. Daniel, he said, shaking my hand firmly. I appreciate you coming. I expected discomfort, maybe defensiveness. But Robert didn't flinch. He offered me coffee, sat across from me, got straight to it. I'm disappointed in her, he said. Not just for the affair, for the dishonesty. You've always been straight with me. You didn't deserve to find out that way. I nodded. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. He leaned back in his chair and steepled his fingers. That said, if you're still interested in pursuing your investment fund concept, I'd like to talk. This situation with Lauren doesn't change the fact that I trust your judgment and your ethics. That caught me off guard. Cleared my throat. You're still willing to back me? Even after? He cut me off. I separate business from family. And frankly, you've shown more character in the last week than some people show in a decade. I didn't know how to respond to that. So I just nodded again and opened my briefcase. The proposal I'd been building for the better part of a year was polished. Clean numbers, clear language, no fluff. A long-term, ethics-forward investment fund. Transparent portfolio management. Client-first service model. I'd pitched it to a few small investors in the past, but with Robert's endorsement, it could finally take off. He read the first few pages in silence, flipping with precision. I like it, he said eventually. Send me the full deck. I'll loop in my analyst. That was it. No handshake deal, no promises, just a green light to go further. I left the office feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. That night, I started drafting emails to a few other contacts. People I'd worked with over the years, former clients, old colleagues, even a competitor or two I'd always respected. I wasn't trying to prove anything to Lauren. This wasn't about revenge or image. This was about moving forward, rebuilding, Not from ashes, from clarity. The house felt emptier by the day, but I didn't rush to fill the silence. I started rearranging things, not dramatically, just little tweaks. New bedsheets. Threw out the broken toaster we always said we'd replace. Took down a few framed photos and replaced them with clean space. One morning, while cleaning out a drawer in the hallway, I found a birthday card she'd written me the year before. It read, "To the most loyal man I've ever known. I love you, forever and always." I stared at those words for a long time. Then I tore the card in half, dropped it in the trash, and kept moving. By the second week, I'd beg *N to feel more like myself. Not entirely. Not yet. But close. I started sleeping through the night again. I started laughing at things again. Little things. A bad joke from a podcast, a random meme from my sister, a neighbor kid singing off-key while riding a scooter down the street. I was learning how to be alone in the space we once shared. One night, I sat on the back porch with a drink in hand. Bourbon. Neat. I looked up at the stars and felt something unexpected. Peace. Not because everything was resolved or forgiven or even fully understood, but because I wasn't chasing anymore. Not answers. Not closure. Not her. I had done the hard thing, walked away from something I still loved because it no longer respected me. And that kind of self-protection isn't just an act of defense. It's an act of strength. Robert followed through. He invested. Suddenly, my fund, once a dream, had legs. More partners joined. I buried myself in work, and for the first time, I felt like I was building something mine. The idea of marrying Lauren faded fast. She texted once, said she missed us. I left it on read. Months later, I ran into Lauren's sister, Hannah, at a business event. She looked at me and said, "You deserved better." We talked. Then we talked more. While Lauren faked a new relationship online to get my attention, I was already gone. Rebuilding, healing, and quietly falling for someone who never lied.